Well, hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. So today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I wanted to give you my top likes and dislikes when it comes to Casio watches. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you might be thinking, no, this doesn't make sense. Greg never says anything negative about Casio. He's a total fanboy. But the truth is, there's just a couple things that, kind of bug me sometimes. It's a short list. Okay, the list of things I like is much longer, but let's start with the short list first. Okay, I mean, obviously, when I get my Casio watches, most of them I have purchased for myself. So I've done a little bit of research and figured out exactly what I wanted. And so then when I get the watch, there's really no question it has what I wanted, and I'm probably not going to complain about anything. Just a few of my watches were gifts from friends or family members, people who actually know me, and so they've kind of hit the mark on that okay as well. So really not a lot of complaints about the watches themselves. But one thing that kind of bothers me a little bit is, see this? There's that little instruction book that comes with a lot of these Casio watches. And I know they have to make this fit inside the same box that the watch comes in, so they have to be kind of small. And I don't have a lot of experience with other brands of watches, so I suspect they all have kind of these tiny instruction books. This one looks more substantial than it really is, just because it's in 9 languages. So I only really need 1/9 of this, to cover what I need in English. I guess if I want to get brave here, I could try to make one of these videos in Portuguese sometime, and then I could tell you all about the manutenção pelo usuário for this watch. Pardon my Portuguese. So anyway, got this little booklet here, and then sometimes it's not in the booklet form, it's more like this here. And my wife reminds me that this is like the old style paper maps we used to have before we all had, map software in our pocket in our phone. So this one also, this is in several languages. So probably just this section here is all I would need for English. The other thing my wife reminds me about this is that, like those old paper maps, sometimes you never quite know if you're ever going to fold it up the same way twice. I think I got this though. Okay, fold this up. Oh, once again, something that needs to be small enough to fit inside. Hey, not bad. When you buy the watch. So what can I tell you about the manual? First of all, I complain of it's small. It's small writing and small printing. And it's hard to read and kind of, fiddly there. But the thing is, it actually contains great information. So one alternative to using the little paper booklet would just be to download a PDF online, and or also with some of the newer watches, some of the newer modules, there's kind of an HTML web page version of this that's not really the PDF. So yeah, in some ways that's better, but I still have some complaints about it. Let me show you how that looks on my tablet. All right, so here's a manual in PDF form, and it's basically, they've just taken the same pages that are in the little booklet, and they've just put them in a different layout here. So it's kind of nice when you can use your tablet and kind of zoom in, and now it's no longer a matter of fine print. But if you want to go from, let's see down there, that's page E1 for, English, first page, right? So now if I want to see the next page, I go over here to E2, then I scroll over here to E3, then down one and over. And so again, it's still just a little bit of a hassle to scroll through the book this way, even though you do have that option of seeing things, a little bit larger print. But still, I kind of wish they would just take the book and maybe completely reformat it entirely rather than just create this, this PDF version of the book, because it is a little bit tricky if you want to go from one topic to another. And, well, the first part of what I want to know is up here, and the next part of what I want to know is down here. And, I don't know. That's just a little bit of a pet peeve. But I must emphasize that the information contained in this manual, both the printed form and here in the PDF form, is all great information. They do a great job of telling you everything you need to know about a watch. They don't get into every single detail. Like, I don't think this one will actually tell you what kind of battery to use or capacitor if you ever need to change the power supply on this solar-powered watch. That's something they want you to do by taking it to an authorized service facility And they also probably didn't show you how to get into the diagnostic modes that I've shown off in some of my other videos. But, that's fine. Everything else you need to know is here. But if you don't want to have to read through every page of this, well, that's one of the reasons I make these videos, so that basically I try to cover everything that's in this manual, not to give, a plug to my channel, but hey, if there's a watch you're interested in and I've covered it in one of my in-depth reviews, you might want to take a look at that. And maybe if you've taken a look at that, you don't even need to see this manual, right? So, but let's just quickly go over here to the HTML version of a manual. So if I go here to their website, here's the HTML version of one of the manuals. But again, it's a little bit clunky because then you have to go in and here are some of the topics, and then, you tap there, and then it will, load up the next page like a web page and show you those things, and then tap there and go to the next one. So it's kind of like reading the book, but you have to wait for each page to download. And still, it's not my favorite way to learn about the watch, by reading the HTML version of the manual. But I suppose, if you're really into the watch, this is something you're going to want to do in order to learn the most you can about how to use it. Now, another thing I don't necessarily love about Casio watches is the negative LCD stuff. So I'm going to take an example right here. So it's just generally speaking, I think you have to admit that the positive LCD, something like this, where you have dark characters against a lighter background, is generally easier to see than the light characters against a dark background. So you got that here, same thing up here. This is kind of a different color version. Here on the AWG M100 models, you've got the same thing going in these LCD windows here versus those over there. And sometimes I really like the colors that they've come up with. This one's kind of an interesting color combination, and I might like to see that with a regular, I would say, positive LCD. You might call these other ones a negative LCD, reverse LCD, inverse LCD. And they offer a lot of them with this, when I think that maybe they could offer both kinds. You see, what I've discovered is that the reason this looks the way it does as an inverse LCD compared to this one over here, all they do, there's a little piece of polarized film on the module, on the LCD screen there. And when it's being manufactured, if you were to take that little piece of polarized film and just turn it 90 degrees like that, and then attach it to here, it would become a positive LCD like this one. So in the manufacturing, it's just as easy as that. Take that little piece of film, turn it 90 degrees, and tack it on there, and that's the difference between the reverse LCD and the normal LCD. And there are videos out there if you want to get adventurous and watch someone else's videos on how to do these modifications yourself. Let's say you have this watch here and you'd like to turn it into a positive LCD screen. You can take it all apart. You can kind of peel off that little polarized film there. You can get a new piece and turn it 90 degrees and put it back together, and maybe it would come out looking like that. So you'd get the colors of the case that you want, but the LCD itself would be positive instead of negative. Or this one here that's red. If you were to do that modification with this one, with a piece of the same kind of red polarized film turned 90 degrees, then you'd have basically the background would be the same color as these digits, and the digits themselves would be kind of that salmon color that the background is right now. And that might look really interesting, but see, Casio doesn't offer it that way. If you wanted to try to modify it yourself, you could, but I don't recommend it. I haven't done that. I suppose for those people who've done it a lot, maybe it's not that difficult. And someone can show you a YouTube video where they did the whole process in 10 minutes, taking everything apart, changing that polarized film and making the watch look different. But, there's a lot of little pieces in there. You got to be super careful about the way you take it apart, and even more careful about the way you put it all back together. And, I really think, in the factory, it would be so simple for them to make, two versions of this, positive LCD and negative LCD. And I don't know why they don't offer more variations. So many interesting watches that I kind of take a pass because it's negative LCD, and I really prefer the positive LCD because, like I said, if you're not at just the right angle, it does become more difficult to see that little guy's readout, doesn't it? So again, no offense to those of you who prefer the negative LCD, that's fine. I just think that they could offer even more varieties in negative and positive, and make more sales that way and make guys like me happier. There are some watches that are very interesting to me, but I just won't do it because it's so much easier to read a positive LCD rather than a negative LCD. Okay, another thing that has bothered me in the past about my Casio watches is just fatigue right here on this part of the watch band or strap, right there where you bend it every day in order to take it on and off, you know? And so with some of my older Casio watches from the 80s and the 90s, that little spot right there where it gets the most stress, where I bend it back the most when I'm trying to take it off and put it back on again, that can sometimes develop a little crack right there. And once that starts to crack, the whole thing kind of cracks apart and this whole part of the strap breaks off. Then you got to get a new strap. Now, you might say, well, you know, straps don't cost that much and they're readily available. Maybe it's kind of like, you know, tires on a car, right? I mean, you drive a car for 3 or 4 years and then you got to get new tires. You know, that's just one of those things that you expect to wear out. But I don't know, like with this, okay, fine. But with these older watches, you know, like this one here, I cannot buy the exact replacement for the original watch band that was on this watch. So I replaced it with this one here. Here's one I probably could find an original watch band that would match what was on here before, but I just got tired of doing that. So I found one that was silicone. I think it'll last better. And so, you know, again, these are some of the older watches. Maybe with the newer watches, Casio's done a better job with the materials they use. For example, this AWG M100. Now, this feels nice and thick. It feels like a more bendable type of resin than maybe the one that originally came with this watch. So, you know, maybe this one will last better over time. And again, for less than $15, I could just get a new watch band for this if I really needed to. But again, you know, that was one of my complaints, that for all I know, they've fixed the problem and this resin watch band will work just fine for years to come. Unfortunately, these days, as you can see, I now have so many watches that I probably won't be wearing the same watch often enough every day that I'll actually have a chance to, you know, to wear that out because it's the same watch on and off every single day. So probably, you know, I'm not a good judge of this as far as how well these are going to last, because again, these are probably going to last forever because I won't be wearing this exact watch every single day for 5 years like maybe I used to with some of my older watches, you know, back in the 90s. Now, what are some things I really like about Casio watches? Well, for the most part, they're very affordable. A watch like this, packed with features for, you know, $100, maybe a little more, maybe a little bit less. You start getting into some of the fancier ones like this one, and now you're talking, you know, you get into maybe a couple $100, maybe all the way up to $300 if you're not too careful about where you shop. But, you know, most of the lines of Casio watches and G-Shock watches are going to be below $200 each. And so there are obviously some that are costing more than that. Limited edition, collector's editions, ones that come with, you know, they're all titanium or they're somehow made of special materials or things like that. But for the most part, you can get a lot of value out of your average Casio watch without spending a whole lot of money. Occasionally, you'll run into things like this watch here that are not readily available on the US market. So you have to go looking in the international market in order to find something like this. So I could say maybe that's something I don't like about Casio watches sometimes, when they have the ones that you just got to be looking overseas and you really got to, you know, investigate in order to find something that's such a unique version of a watch that you might readily be able to get here in the US, but you just can't get it with these colors, for example. So yeah, I wish they would be, you know, allow us Americans to be a little more adventurous by offering more varieties of watches. Like this one here would be a nice one. I had to go overseas to find this, but you know what I mean. And some of the features you might find on these Casio watches without having to spend a whole ton of money might include wave scepter technology. This is an inexpensive watch that will set itself to the right time, receiving time from an atomic time source. So it's going to be correct right down to the second and check itself every night to keep itself accurate. And this is not a very expensive watch that has that built into it. And just for a little bit more, you might get tough solar technology. This one happens to have both tough solar and the wave scepter technology. They call this multi-band 6 because you can use this in different countries and it will receive atomic time information from atomic time transmitters in different countries. So affordable I love tough solar. I love multi-band 6, and these are things that Casio has implemented very, very well. It's solid technology, works great, and also, you can always count on a Casio watch being, physically a solid device that you just don't have to worry about it being delicate in any way. Even this one that's not a G-Shock, it's not terribly delicate. And you can wear this every day and be pretty confident that it's going to stand up well for you. And for just a little bit more, you can get this one, also not a G-Shock, but made pretty tough. It's got the 200-meter water resistance built into it. And, this one works great and will not cost that much money. And this has the atomic time reception built into it. So that's great. I also like the way Casio will release different variations on the same module. So you'll find that these watches all operate the same way, but they're available in some different shapes, sizes, colors to match your individual style. But once you know your way around any one of these watches, you know how to use all of them because they're all based on the same module using the same technology. And that reminds me of these watches here. All of these have Casio's triple sensor with a barometer and a compass and a thermometer. And so they're able to do many of the same things, but you get them in different price ranges. These Pro-Treks are more expensive, and these two over here feature titanium pieces. And this is a G-Shock, and this is not a G-Shock nor a Pro-Trek, just a Casio watch that happens to have that triple sensor for a little bit more of a budget-friendly watch. These are all tough solar watches that recharge themselves. This one is not, but again, for the budget-conscious user, this is kind of a nice option to have as well. And I really should mention one of the other things I really love about Casio watches is the community of watch enthusiasms that rally around these and other watches like this and are supportive of each other. It's a hobby, it's a passion, it's something people really like to do. And the people I found that are into Casio watches are very kind and polite to each other, very helpful to each other, always willing to share knowledge. And I really like that because, you put yourself out, especially on YouTube, and you're kind of subject to the whims of whoever's watching. And if they're in a bad mood and they want to say mean things to you in the comments or whatever, that can happen. But for the most part, almost every single person that I've interacted with that has a passion for Casio watches has just been so upbeat about it and so friendly and nice. And that really says a lot. And I guess that just ties into the overall thing that you never really have to worry about collecting Casio watches. There's always going to be plenty of information out there if you're doing some research, trying to find out what kind of watch you want. You're going to be able to find out what's out there. And once you find the features you want, there's really no question. You don't have to worry. Is this watch really going to live up to what I want it to be? Yes, they are. And so these are the overall things I really love about Casio watches. And also there's always something new that's about to come out. Always something to look forward to when you get into collecting Casio watches. And I'm looking forward to a delivery here just in the next couple of days. So that means pretty soon, there will be another episode of the Good Timekeeping Show, and I hope you will join me for that, again, coming very soon.